to-do list isn't as crazy. It may be something I'll play with more to see if there's an opportunity there. But we are basically, I can see the fireworks from my bedroom. We're that close. I can see the Magic Kingdom fireworks, and I can see it from the parking lot behind our office as well in the evening. So, but we're in a suburban type neighborhood. We're not a downtown center. There's tons of single family homes, and we're just a village center, which is kind of a concept of like, if you're familiar with Celebration, Florida. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of mixed use, high density gathering place. And we happen to be on a lake with a sunset view. So, but we're surrounded by homes. So, it's kind of not really somewhere where a tourist is going to stumble across.
Sure.
Yeah. Does that help answer?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Sweet. Awesome. So the next article that I stumbled across, I was sharing with Chris, it's kind of near and dear to my heart. And it's kind of sad. I don't take any pleasure from talking about this, but there's a space that just closed in Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. And Rehoboth Beach, I told Chris the nickname's kind of Rehomo. It's the big kind of like LGBT beach for DC, Delaware. And I'd always heard about this co-working space. And I went last summer, and it was just kind of so frustrating to see that it's kind of talks about how it's all about location, right? So anyone who's familiar with Rehoboth knows that there's a main kind of drag and there's a main boardwalk. And unfortunately, this space was way off on Route 1, about 5 to 7 miles away from the beach. And it just killed me because the space was empty, but every Starbucks in that area was packed. And like I get there at 6 o'clock in the morning to get a seat and camp out. And so, Chris and I were talking about how sometimes when you have destination or vacation type adjacent co-working, you kind of have to prepare for the seasonality of the business. Mm-hmm. And so as a co-working owner, how do you best prepare for those really slow months? And how would you kind of, be able to hold out and kind of save yourself until it gets busy? I see you reading through that, Jamie. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a challenging. I think it's challenging. We were talking yesterday about our conference this year is in Las Vegas, and you put up the article about the downtown space, but there aren't very many spaces sort of near. Everything's sort of suburban there, and probably similar to Orlando. It's like you get the tourists who go to kind of the hot spot, and then everything else is sort of more suburban sprawl, and it's more challenging to aggregate that way. And then I still don't think it's quite mainstream for tourists to be thinking about co-working spaces on vacation. I think especially when they're going to like Vegas or Orlando, they're sort of tied into like the family schedule and probably not kind of popping out to do work for a day. So I don't know. I mean, I still think even though co-working is becoming really mainstream, I certainly think there are locations in which it's still challenging because you need a certain amount of density and, a certain socioeconomic group that's working from home and contracting. And sorry about that.
No worries.
No, okay. And you mentioned the conference briefly. I kind of realized once we were halfway through that first article, we didn't really introduce you. We're excited to have you with us. I was just so excited to talk to you. I just couldn't hold back. But we've got Jamie Russo, who's the new executive director of the Global Workspace Association. And I figured, without putting you too much on the hot seat, we'd love for you to kind of share with everyone who's viewing and will view afterwards kind of your story, tell us about GWA and kind of what brought you there, and kind of give us the whole lowdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it short here. So I own 2 co-working spaces, one in Chicago and one in Palo Alto. So that's kind of how I got started in the shared workspace and just became really passionate about, that's why I opened the spaces, really passionate about creating places where people can do their best work and get out of their house and build a community. And just kind of started to get involved in the broader industry. I was the president of the League of Extraordinary Co-working Spaces for a couple of years. I started a podcast similar to Chris called Everything Coworking, and just, was really sort of maybe more academically nerdy about the sort of bigger picture and design and where the industry is going. So I had the opportunity to step into this role, and the association has been traditionally, more focused on like executive suites, and we're just seeing, the whole industry sort of shift. Those are certainly still a big part of the market, and co-working spaces really starting to show up more and also hybridize. So we struggle with the terminology we use. Everyone's using the term co-working, even if that means they're all private offices. I was with the Lexi crew a couple of weekends ago, and a couple of those folks are opening new spaces that are really office heavy. And I said, but you're calling them co-working? And they're like, oh yeah, because of the, the community focus. So I think we're going to see a big shift sort of in terminology and how everyone kind of thinks from the business centers have been really great at being sustainable and profitable and kind of have the economics and operations down, and then kind of combining that with the community focus of a co-working space and sort of getting the best of both worlds. I think we'll see kind of a good merge there. So I'm excited. We're doing, we have a lot of plans for 2016, delivering a lot of valuable content to help people run their businesses and stay on top of industry trends. We do our big conference every year, which this year is in Las Vegas, September 28th to October 1st. But we're really here to support people in running their businesses and understanding kind of what's coming down the pipe and how to stay current and to connect them to other people in the industry. So Chris referred to a group in Atlanta, which was great. They're new members, and it's a tight enough organization that when things come up that I know is attractive to someone or interesting to someone, I shot them a note the other day about a podcast episode coming up that I thought they'd be interested in. And I see they put some co-working on their website. So, I mentioned that. So anyway, I won't, keep taking the mic, but excited to be here and excited for the year ahead.
Yeah. So Jamie, do you see some of these niche co-working spaces? Like we came across one of these articles about a food kitchen that's opening up. Do you see them potentially being a part of the GWA?
Yeah, I mean, so the goal of the GWA is to be kind of a broader workspace association, called the Global Workspace Association. So being sort of a broader platform for the future of work conversation. There are things that'll be specific to co-working, but there are lots of things that, are common to shared spaces, no matter kind of what niche or where they play. And even I think corporations who are trying to understand the future of work and how, what the consumerization of workspace is looking like will be a part of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And for those of you that are interested in reading more, I just shared the article that Chris was talking about. Officing Today did a really cool piece all about different types of culinary co-working spaces. One of the trends that we see for 2016 is hybridization, specialization, and kind of a breakdown in niche-focused spaces. There's an article that the New York Times published. What was it?
The temptation of co-working, and even though they misspelled co-working, but it's all right. We still like the New York Times. We want them to give us. We want them to give as much exposure as they can to the industry, and they have their roles.
I just shared it though there for everyone. So David from Grind always cracks me up because whenever the New York Times publishes about co-working, it's always like they've discovered it for the first time ever. And so what was really interesting, I was sharing with Chris earlier, the first couple articles always came out of like the real estate sections, and then they evolved into the business sections. This latest article actually was published in the fashion section. So I guess the New York Times is declaring that co-working is not only a good business, but now it's fashionable.
Love it. Well, Noe House is, or New House, however you say it, certainly is fashionable. I'll give them that.
Yeah, very, very hoity-toity and high-end. And the reporter was reporting from L.A. She mentioned she was talking about Soho House, which I've been to that location in West Hollywood. It's pretty swanky, and it is kind of like a clubhouse. Yeah. You can't get in. You can't get through the elevator unless you're with a member. And once you get up there, the people that you see, it's pretty impressive. Do you think that obviously there's potential here, but I'll throw this out to everyone who's participating, and if anyone wants to, jump in, where do you think the limit is for this type of premium luxury co-working? Like, how far do you think people can take this? Anyone want to jump on that?
Here, I'm gonna take Cynthia out right quick. We'll bring you back in a little bit, Cynthia. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. All right, so we have an extra seat open right now, but yeah, I mean, I think with those really unique I like to call it executive co-working, and I think that's what you said with that Soho house was kind of like. We didn't get a chance to visit out there together when we were in Juicy, but I know you mentioned a lot about it. But do you foresee those executive co-working spaces kind of coming on board and being more co-working, or kind of just being more of being that just like exclusive club like type atmosphere, Jamie?
So executive is not the word I would use for Soho House. I haven't been to the LA location, but in Chicago, it's very hipster.
Yeah, hipster. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's clubby, like exclusive you have to be a member. I mean, to your point, I had a bunch of connections in there that I just sort of missed when I was there, and I had lunch there, and I couldn't get a tour because it was just like same, just exactly what you said. Like, you can't get into the elevator to go up to the workspace area if you're not with a member.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've heard sort of mixed feedback about that. I don't think it'll be a huge percentage of overall co-working. I think with anything, you have sort of different ranges and people sort of segment themselves into it. I think those places sort of, you get the idea that they're about community because they're, you have to apply and be accepted. But I think because of that, they can feel not as community driven because they're so exclusive. So there are people who like that. And I think they think there will be lots of people who, just prefer. What I do think is not that we'll see more exclusive club models. I think there's probably only room for a few of those. I think we'll see, though, the bar raising on the experience in any co-working space.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone wants to be a part of something that excludes, sort of it's so exclusive. They want something more comfortable.
Yeah.
But I think they want, people are going to see Soho House and, Nui House, and they're going to sort of want a taste of that in their own space in terms of design and aesthetic and services and that kind of thing. So I think we'll see sort of an up-leveling of some of the more, generic, for lack of a better term, co-working spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got Paul. He's going to jump in with us.
Hey, how you all doing?
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good, I'm good. I'm in Austin, Texas. I started with the third co-working space in town.
Awesome.
Called Texas Co-working, and since then the town has exploded with co-working. We've got the Capital Factory, which is huge, and we've got WeWork, which is off the charts, and we've got umpteen niche co-working spots all over town. It's like I think it's the co-working capital of the world right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are so many spaces out there, and there's so many unique spaces. That's great. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Oh yeah.
Paul, that's really driven by population growth and limitations on real estate, right?
It is, yeah. Austin, there's an enormous number of people that want to live in Austin, want to work in Austin. They come here, and a lot of them leave because they can't find a place to live. A very high percentage. I think it's like 40% of the people coming here wanting to be here in Austin have to go away because they can't find a sustainable place to live,
Wow.
Interesting.
I heard the number that 500 people move to Austin every day.
Yeah, that's probably true. And of those 500 people, probably about 200 can't stay, don't stay. They move, they leave,
Wow. That's that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, Austin's definitely becoming the next Silicon Valley, and I mean, Atlanta over here. We're having an influx of co-working spaces come up here as well. I mean, we have a WeWork that's coming in. Rome is opening up their fifth location coming up. I mean, and there's so much more opportunity for more spaces, and And just to your point, Paul, since you're in an area where there are more co-working spaces that are a little more saturated, do you still see more growth for more spaces there?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of growth for the smaller niche space, like architects. This is the one that's huge. Capital Factory. That's enormous in town. And there's two like mega spaces in town, which is Capital Factory and WeWork. Both of them have multiple floors of downtown high rises, like Capital Factory has the whole entire top floor of the Omni Hotel. And WeWork has one of the top floors of a building at 6 in Congress, which is the epicenter of Austin. And then all over town, there are these smaller spaces like Urban Collab is one, and they specialize in social good and people into like building stuff. And then we've got like a makers type co-working space where, you can do robotics or 3D printing. And we've got like a fitness co-working space, and we've got
you got Orange co-working down South Austin.
What's that?
It's you got Orange co-working down in South Austin.
Orange. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Urban Collab. The founder Natalie, she was actually with me last week in Bali.
Oh no!
Are you familiar with the story of that building that they're in?
Yeah, I kind of am, and I know her really well. I've seen her on a number of occasions.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if you know this, Jamie. Natalie, we actually have ties. She comes from DC, of course, and she landed in Austin. And after some time with the Black Chamber of Commerce, she found a former brothel in East Austin. And she was going to turn it into a coffee shop because she wanted to build kind of a community spot. They've got a great backyard for a trailer for like food trucks. And she couldn't get the right permits. And the building wasn't going to work out from like a health code perspective, but there was a great bar already. And so she just said, well, let's just do co-working. And so that's how she opened, that's how kind of how that story evolved and how she got that space. It was pretty interesting. Paul, out of curiosity, whereabouts in Austin are your 3 spaces?
I don't have any spaces anymore. I've actually am building a rural co-working space right now. It's out in the country, and it's a combination of tiny houses and large houses with a co-working space and a swimming pool and croquet courts and tennis courts and all kinds of hike and bike trails, a disc golf course. It's kind of like an all-in-one community / co-working / just total fulfillment of everything you want to do in life. You could.
Jamie and I are already in.
Oh yeah, totally. I was like, Paul, where can I sign up?
Golf and biking. So friends with this co-living. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I have 2 names that I've registered: Texas Co-Living.
Okay.
Texas Co-working. So they're both kind of coming together, the living and working. It's all in making it all in one,
And what is your time frame for opening that, Paul?
We're looking at the next 60 to 90 days, adding 24 homes, tiny homes. And then we're also adding these things called casitas, which are amazing. I'll put it in the chat, and you can just punch that word into Google and it'll bring it up. But the casita is it's like the iPhone of tiny houses. It's like chrome, stainless steel exterior with a big extension that's like 1-inch glass. And inside it's like a spaceship. It's like it's all iPhone controlled. You open your drawers and pull out your bed and do everything from the phone. And then if you get tired of living where you are, they fit into slots. We have these racks that we just put them in. And if you get tired of where you are, say, look, I'm tired of Austin, Texas. I want to be in San Francisco. You pick up your phone, you say, come pick up my home and take it to San Francisco. And 4 days later, you're living in San Francisco and you don't have to pack, it just goes with you.
That's amazing. You're using them in your co-living area?
What's that?
That's what you're going to put in?
Yeah, we're going to put in 9 casitas in a rack that's 3 by 3. It's 3 high and 3 wide. Those are casitas. And then in addition to those 9, we're going to put in 24 other tiny homes that are like modular, that we're going to put on there and build it. We already have like kind of an RV park with Airstreams and some very large houses, but now we're going to focus on these tiny houses, with the co-working integrated.
Neat.
That's so cool, Paul. I can't wait to see this and talk to you a little bit more about this offline. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, it's fun. We're having a good time. I grew up in a little town in Illinois, and that town had everything. It had every kind of sport. It had softball. The kids had plays. They had a open air movie theater that was free. And I kind of thought, man, I ought to be able to reproduce this, And so I'm trying to go back to my childhood is what I'm doing.
Age is a number.
So awesome. And we've got Jackie from Baltimore. She's curious, are these co-living spots going to be outside of Austin?
They're about half an hour from downtown. It's a real easy drive into downtown. Austin is growing in all directions. It's growing east, north, south, west, and the easiest commute into town is from the east. So we're in the east, so it's like almost a mindless drive into town on Highway 71. So it's strategically located, 30 minutes or so from the heart of downtown.
That's awesome. And I'm fascinated with this whole co-living concept and with these tiny homes. You said that you can literally pull it out and move to a different market, but are they also, I guess, does that mean that you kind of purchase one and then you've got it, or are some of these going to be available on kind of like more of a month-to-month basis, similar to like what WeWork's doing with WeLive?
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm not that familiar with WeLive. I'd like to learn more about it. I could probably learn from it, but it's basically the guy who's doing it is Jeff Wilson, and Jeff Wilson did a 1-year experiment at St. Ed's University where he lived in a tiny little dumpster and proved that somebody can survive in a minuscule environment, and now he's formed this company, and basically he's the one manufacturing and developing the casita concept.
Wow.
And so he's got San Francisco, I think several other cities they're lining up.
Yeah, he's got DC on the list.
Yeah,
I want to learn about that.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's not my venture. That's Jeff Wilson's doing that. He's also called Professor Dumpster.
So listeners out there, how many of you guys would live in one of these casitas? Show us some love. That is so cool.
You have to be a certain personality, and I think some couples wouldn't make it in a tiny home.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Great. Well, Paul, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you chiming in.
Yeah, I'm going to jump out now, but thanks for letting me in for a bit, and I'm really interested in your co-working success series here. I'll be following it and spreading the word. Thanks a lot.
That's great.
We'd love to have you. Thanks, Paul.
All right, take care.
Great to meet you.
That was neat. You learn something new every day.
Who knew?
Yeah, I love it. So interesting.
What were we going to say, Chris?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I've heard a lot about these different tiny homes and how there are some entrepreneurs that would love to live in these tiny homes, and it's just there's a lot of things with zoning restrictions and everything else, and I think we're going to see a lot of these tiny homes popping up near these co-working spaces pretty soon.
Well, it just kind of makes sense, right? Like, so I've got an appointment set. I head back to DC March 2nd. And the next day I'm there, I'm touring WeLive.
Oh,
so it's month-to-month apartments, fully furnished, a few different sizes you can choose from. And, why not? If I'm going to be there for a month, put some roots down and then, move to another location or another city, wherever I go next. It's kind of, I think it's the evolution of this co-working mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
like the willingness just to share space.
Yeah. And so Jamie, I kind of want to jump back towards you because you also have an awesome podcast, Everything Coworking. You've stuck with it, had some great listeners out there. Any follow-up from some of your listeners about kind of how they've kind of changed and how their co-working businesses change? In particular, the one with the one that's doing the real estate kitchen.
Oh, I know. I thought it was you that was super interested in that. Yeah, I have not followed up with him. I need to revisit some of the early episodes and get some updates from them.
No worries.
Just like what you talked about, that example earlier, I think it makes a lot of sense. I just saw that Covo in San Francisco is partnering with a design firm, and they're doing kind of dedicating a bunch of space memberships in their space to architects. And they're going to buy a plotter and all, the library. And then, when you have amenities like that are specifically for a certain niche, I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So what can we expect coming up in the next in the next 90 days from Jamie Russo with the Everything Co-work and in your great podcast?
Yeah, we have a bunch of great guests lined up. I have a bunch of recordings that are ready to launch. We did a good one yesterday. Dale Hersowitz from One Systems. We talked about the Internet of Things and how that's going to start taking shape in workspaces even more than it has a little bit so far. So that was fun. Another guest talking about is a business center chain that's been experimenting with co-working and had really interesting stories about kind of their framework and how they've been experimenting and what's worked and what's not. Mm-hmm. And then we haven't launched Mike's yet. Mike's is coming next week, our 2016 trend report from the Coworkaholic and Desk Mag. So some great guests, and then just more great content for the rest of the quarter lined up. Some good blog posts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love your articles. I know you recently wrote something for New Worker Mag?
Work Design magazine.
Work Design Mag. Yeah, I know you recently wrote an article for there, and Mike and I are just huge supporters of the Jamie Russo movement and everything that you're doing with GWA, and we want to be able to support you as much as we can. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, it's a good supportive industry that we're in. It's part of the reason we're all here, right?
I want to open up the floor to any of our listeners that have joined us. We've got a couple of new ones. If anybody wants to jump in and ask myself, Mike, or Jamie any questions about GWA or co-working, or just kind of what we have in mind moving forward with this with this awesome Blab series, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to open up the seat, and I'll bring you in if anybody would like to bring in. But Mike, do you have anything you want to jump in?
Well, actually, so we've got one more link. My computer's acting a little fuzzy. Jamie, since you are based in the San Francisco Bay Area, have you made it to check out Regis's new co-working spaces?
I have not. No, I was still confirming that those were launched, and I think, is it in Mountain View? Oh, there you go. San Jose.
There's the link for everyone.
Yep. I think I was kind of keeping.
There's still a work in progress.
I had thought it was. Let's see. Stroll Street.
Yeah, I know that some of the Regis spaces over here in Atlanta, they've been talking about converting them to co-working, but we'll see to which part of co-working they actually implement into their model outside of just the community table and some open drinks, and if they'll actually have that full service component that a lot of these co-working communities have, and then also the programming that comes along with co-working. I think that's where some of the spaces, some of the Regis spaces are kind of could grow with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just find it
open yet.
I just find it interesting because I think that they've been poking around for a couple of years now. I mean, rumor kind of has it that, they've opened one concept here, they've opened one concept there, they've got these little pods in airports. I just think it's very interesting to see that they're just kind of, testing the waters. you know, because I mean, ultimately they've got what, 2,200 spaces worldwide,
I think that number grows quickly because they're on an acquisition tear, so that increases all the time.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. You bring up the acquisition tear. Now that you've had some time to spend in GWA, and like you said, they've been more traditionally business center focused. What does that acquisition market look like right now? Like what's the landscape? You know, how do they move? Where are they looking to go? And how often are these operators selling out, or not selling out, but you know, being
I think most acquisitions are done by Regis. We don't see a lot of other consolidation in the executive suite space. And they mostly look for brands that have, you know, multiple locations in a region versus, you know, onesie twosies here and there. So they look to acquire groups of spaces to kind of add that operational efficiency in any given market. Yeah, and I think they just continue to have a lot of success with their traditional spaces. You know, I think, you know, this group, we probably think that has an end at some point as the generational shift happens. But, you know, they have, my understanding is they have kind of a floor plan that they try to duplicate whenever they, you know, have an opportunity to do a new space or remodel. And that works pretty well with them. And I wonder if that's partly why the spaces concept has been slower to roll out, because, you know, they just have this model that's worked really well for them for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, they are pretty consistent. I mean, I've been to visit some of their spaces, and I mean, everything from their presentations and to their welcoming packets to what you get and what you don't get, it's very clear. And I think a lot of co-working space owners we have a lot that we can learn from them, and then also they have a lot that they can learn from us as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. Totally.
For sure. Well, those were kind of all the newsy articles that I've got for my end of things. Chris, do you? I know we were gonna maybe focus a little bit on commercial real estate trends, or you know, anything that's kind of burning that you want to chat about?
No, well, I think the commercial real estate is getting really hot right now. I think there's so much development going on, and I think there's going to be a real opportunity to revamp just these old, dilapidated buildings that have just been neglected, and they're in somewhat nice parts of town, but they're not getting a lot of love. I think we're going to see a lot of that, and I just recently got my my real estate license. I'm officially licensed. What? So that's going to be a lot of fun, so I'll be able to report there. But I'd be really interested to see if there are going to be more co-working space owners and landlords and tenants kind of working that percentage lease model versus just that gross or triple net route, because typically that's how it's been. And I think if these landlords start to see that, hey, you know, there's money to be made here, and there's an opportunity to also fill the space and serve all the other surrounding businesses, I think they'll be more likely to allow these co-working spaces into their communities.
I think that's a huge trend we'll see, and I think that the traditional model of signing a lease and ramping up the space is challenging, and I think we're actually starting to see this play out. There are a number of folks that I know who are negotiating agreements with landlords or building owners now. And you know, a year ago, it was like hoping that was going to happen. And now we see those deals actually getting done. I think one of the things to note about those deals, though, is if you run the numbers, you know, in order to make a deal attractive to a landlord, which to me is like, you know, you have to win over what a traditional, you know, high credit tenant would look like. You have to have a fairly large space, and you have to have a number of private offices. So I think the open plan co-working is harder to sell and harder, you know, you don't have as much revenue per square foot unless you're in Manhattan.
Yeah.
You know, work if you're in a really dense urban area. So I think there are models that certainly work better for that and will be more attractive to landlords. And not every landlord is going to be interested, but there are some that are really starting to get it and understand why it's attractive for their building and for their business. So I think that's exciting.
Absolutely. And with all these with all these mixed use developments that are coming up, I mean, I'm a firm believer that there should be a co-working space in every mixed use development that's taking place, because we have there's this big trend of the work live play atmosphere, and I feel like they have the live aspect covered and then the play part covered, but then when it comes to the work part, all that's left there is a coffee shop or a Starbucks or a bigger Whole Foods with somewhat of a dining / seating area where they cut off your Wi-Fi after 30 minutes. And we all know we're digital nomads, especially Mike. I mean, cutting our Wi-Fi off in 30 minutes, that just doesn't cut it.
No bueno. No bueno.
No bueno. So it'll be really interesting to see what how that pans out. But if you guys have any burning real estate questions with your leases or whatever else, feel free to ask us over here. You can reach out to myself or Jamie or Mike. We'd be happy to help you outside of this episode as well.
Yeah, we've got some great some new faces on, and we've got about 8 minutes left for our hour conversation. So if anyone's got a co-working question, or if they want to know more about what co-working is, you know, the three of us are here to chat away. So please feel free to grab that open seat, or if you've got a particular question. Cynthia was asking, how do you even start that conversation? Are you talking about the conversation for reaching out to a developer? Do you want to, if no one else is going to jump in? Okay. Jamie, do you have any tips or kind of any insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part is finding the right person that matches the right space. So I think this one can take time. The people who I've seen do it pretty successfully already have ties in the real estate space. So they're exposed to enough developers and landlords. You know, they already had those in their network. So it was more natural for them to be having those conversations. And I think probably the landlords and developers are more familiar with their business and understand how it works. I think, you know, you have to start the conversation with the benefits to them, which can be, you know, more revenue than a traditional tenant, pipeline for the building, and just, you know, a really attractive amenity or sort of, you know, buzz to the building. And then you have to kind of get into the numbers pretty quickly, because they'll have no idea sort of what you're talking about and how they may not know how your model works. You know, my landlord in Chicago, I was talking to him the other day, and he did not know. I said, you know, I was talking about WeWork. Didn't you? So I sent him a bunch of info. You know, I was trying to educate him.
He didn't even know about WeWork.
No, and they're 5 blocks from us in Chicago. So
that's crazy. That's like when I spent some time 2 summers ago at the National Association of Realtors convention with our good friend Sam Rosen from Desktime, and we were there pitching Desktime as the Airbnb for office space.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, 8 out of 10 realtors didn't even know what Airbnb was, and I was like, how do you not, you know, how do you not know? I see Cynthia, you had a follow-up question. How's more revenue for them? So, do you want to take this, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I would just ran some numbers to help someone out the other day. So, you know, if you have a full space, the way it would work is, hi again.
Hey, move to the conference room.
So generally the way you would set this up is you don't sign a lease with them. So there are a number of ways to do it, but one way is there is no lease, it's a joint venture. So landlord pays for build out, pays for furniture, you know, you operate the space and maybe you license your brand to them. So you fee for the brand licensing, which becomes a separate entity from your space. And then you operate the space because they want nothing to do with that, right? And then you can do a management fee, a monthly management fee that you take so that you're getting compensated for your time. And you know, need to make that number something that works for you. And then you profit share at the end.
Yes.
So you have to kind of, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't work for every space. Smaller spaces, it probably doesn't work because after you pay a staff person, you know, there's just not enough profit to share at the end. But if you have a big space, And I'm talking, probably at least over 10,000 square feet. When you get to the 20,000 square feet, that starts to, look much better. Then the profit that you can take and share with the landlord makes it so you may make less than if you'd taken the risk on your own, but you now no longer have your name on a lease. And, if you have time to if you need 6 months to ramp up and fill the space, that's not, cash out of your pocket. You're not paying rent while that's happening. And the landlord over time, if you look at, a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease, is making more per month than they would if you were just paying them rent. So if you're paying them $5,000 a month in rent, they could make, 9, 10, 12, just kind of making up numbers by profit sharing with you.
Yeah.
So
my signal cut out, so I missed the first part of it. So you're saying instead of a lease agreement, there's a different type of business arrangement?
Like a joint venture. So you're not paying rent. And some agreements will do it so you're paying a little bit of rent so that you have skin in the game versus just being an operator. But you would basically license your brand to them so that if anything happens with that agreement, you still have your brand, and then you operate the space and you're doing a profit share. So then your name, you basically kind of are out of risk there. But the landlord has to believe in the model and believe in the upside and understand that you're trading off some of that startup risk and costs for, sharing profits with him over time.
Got it. Thank you.
Cynthia, the one of the best ways, or the ways that I've had the most success with approaching and working with clients, it's no different than the hotel business model. In a lot of ways, co-working is the future of hotels, and hotels is the future of co-working. Marriott only owns, I think, 8% to 10% of all the Marriotts in the world. And so typically you've got these larger real estate developers, they'll build the actual building. And then there's massive conferences out there just for pairing developers and investors with different brands. And so if you take a look, let's say in your neck of the woods, since I've been to your space, like a Courtyard or a Spring Hill Suites would do really, really well. And so, basically what Marriott has done, they've put in all the money to develop the brand, the experience, the decor, the look, the feel, even the smell, not to mention the marketing, and they bring the affiliate partners. And so the developers just pay them a licensing fee, like Jamie said.
Like a franchise
and then,
model.
Yeah, kind of like a franchise licensing. And then you've got an operator. There's operators then are also a third party. And so some operators will be approved by Marriott or Hilton's. Sometimes the developers are also the operators. They've got just a different division. And so I think to support what Jamie said, there's really 1,000 ways you can skin this cat, and it all depends on the space that they have, but also the location, right? Because a JW Marriott's not going to do well where a Courtyard would, right? You've got, and that's what's so amazing with co-working. There's so many different types of models, and there's so many different types of brands and communities. And so Chris and I have a colleague and a fellow co-workaholic who, in her market, she's starting to be approached by the owners. Like, she's not having to go to them. They're coming to her, and they're like, we love what you're doing. We want you in our development. And Chris and I told her that's the best situation because they want you. And so you can then dictate your terms, right? And you can be like, well, if you want me that bad, guess what? I need you to sign a joint venture partnership, and it worked, right? And she used that hotel comparison because a lot of these real estate guys, they still don't get it, right? They just can't wrap their head around it. And so if you can compare to an existing model, it at least helps you get in the door, right? And it gives you the opportunity, because a lot of these landlords on some of the projects I've worked on in the past, they won't even talk to you. And I think the hardest part, maybe Jamie, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. Sometimes it's getting around the broker, right?
Right. The broker does not win in this case.
Yeah, because sometimes, the brokers won't even return the phone call, right? And the brokers are kind of the gatekeeper.
Yep.
So if you get the chance to go directly to the developer or go directly to the owner, that's probably the best way to work around that.
Potentially, but if you do that,
potentially,
make sure you have all the paperwork and all the other stuff and all your financing and in your vision. Make sure you already have that lined up, and make sure you can articulate what your plan is and speak to them in their terms, because otherwise they're going to get glazed over. And when you do try to go back to them with a broker, they're not even going to take you seriously or even take your phone calls. It's just an interesting world.
I think that's a challenging model to pursue if you're on your first space, because you're not going to have the financials to back up. They're going to be a lot more skeptical. You're basically a startup. Mm-hmm. I think the reality is at this point, you still have to do a space on your own and have it go well, and then start pitching this model. Yeah,
absolutely. That's so true. Well, cool. We're coming up right to our time. Thanks everybody for joining us. And if you could just tweet us on, hit us up on Twitter. Tell us where you're from. Do a hashtag Coworking Success Live. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any other questions, Mike, did you have anything else you want to say?
Nope. I'm getting ready to. It's 3:00 in the morning. So, my weekend started. But yeah, no. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. We've got Chris. I'm trying to pull up the link. My computer's a little slow. Chris, Stephanie Bermudez, who can't join us today, and myself, we've teamed up to put together a really, really cool 3-part webinar that's going to take place next week. Basically, the ins and outs of opening up a space, what you need to know. It's a super great deal. $99 for about 120 minutes worth of consulting with some great tools to take away. Chris just shared the link. Please, if you're interested in co-working or you know someone who's interested in opening up a space, click the link, join us on the webinar. It should be a great time. And once again, many thanks, Jamie. Always great to chat with you. Always looking for as many excuses as I can get to get you online. And
having me, guys.
Yeah, be sure to check out Jamie's podcast, Everything Co-working. It's a lot of fun, and we look forward. I always enjoy talking to you, Jamie, and I know we'll be talking again soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do a live blab from Vegas in October.
Oh, September.
Yeah, I'm supposed to call in right quick. Pablo.
Oh. Hey, what up?
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, hello, hi. Hey.
Good.
Hey, it's going well. How are you?
Good. Did you have something you wanted to ask Jamie or Mike or myself?
Yeah, what's the program?
The program for the webinar, or the program that right now?
Yeah, right now.
So we're actually just getting ready to wrap up, but every week at 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday, Chris, my buddy right there, and I host a co-working discussion. So anything related to co-working, shared workspace, and kind of the future of work.
Okay. So how does that work?
How does what work? Co-working?
Yeah. Like online?
Chris, do you want to take this one?
Sure, I'll take this one. So co-working, there are a bunch of different spaces that you can go work at. That's not a Starbucks or a restaurant, and it's basically a place that people can go work from that are entrepreneurs or freelancers. So it's a shared workspace piece. But we're about to wrap up. But come join us next Friday if you want to join us. We'd love to have you, Pablo.
Yeah, sure. I'll follow you now, and then I'll get to have a notification when you pop up. Are you the host of this show?
Awesome, cool. Thanks, Pablo.
All right, perfect. Thanks, man.
Bye.
Ciao.
All right, ciao.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care.
Cool. Jamie, again, everybody, thanks for joining us. We had a record attendance. We had 63 people and 12 people that kind of hung out with us the entire time. Stephanie Bermudez, thank you so much. Jackie out there in Baltimore, I know I haven't seen you in a bit. Definitely, we are overdue to catch up, so I look forward to seeing you again soon. And Cynthia at Scribble Space, thank you, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Cool. Thanks.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.